most people don't know their why, or they have it
I would
wrong.
agree with that.
So you haven't engaged them and shown them what their superpower is and how their superpower is contributing to the company. And ultimately their purpose can be connected to the company's purpose. And then you have somebody that's in with you for the long haul.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand.
You're an executive, but are you a leader? That's actually the name of the book written by today's guest, Sonya Shelton. And we think it's a fair question. In fact, lots of people can be good at what they do, but can they be the leader that can build a dream team? Sonya founded Executive Leadership Consulting in 2007 from her passion for partnering with leaders and high achievers to create a clear vision and build work environments where employees are fulfilled and completely committed to their organization's success. Her red thread leadership concept is what we're talking about today.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, Sonya.
Thank you. I'm excited for our conversation.
Us too.
Yeah.
Us too.
In fact, we literally just had a conversation. We're constantly in growth mode, and Michael just had this interview with somebody, and it was all about committing to the company. And what did he tell you, Michael? Because I thought this was interesting.
I use the word devotion. I said, in this particular position, we really need devotion to the ideal that we're trying to create. And he said, fine, I have that. We went through the interview and whatnot. And then I said, any final words about that? And he goes, yeah, I hope I'm not too bold at saying this, but everybody says they want devotion. I have that, but 52 years in business, and I have yet to find a company that had the same devotion to me. And I thought it was awesome.
So timely for this interview. Like it literally just happened, and we just had this discussion right before your camera turned on.
Yeah. Wow. And however that sounds to other people, that to me was music to my ears, because I actually can identify the same thing. 50 years on this earth and 30 years as a serial entrepreneur, but it's very hard to find anybody loyal to anything, no matter how good you are to it, especially when it comes to employees. So maybe we're on the right vein right here to say, give you the mic right here, Sonya, and say, what do you mean by red thread leadership? What is that? Let's dive into this for the audience.
Yes. So we look at, I think a lot of leaders, business owners, they look at, how am I going to grow your business? How are you going to achieve your vision? Hopefully they have a vision, but they're not looking at that combination about their business strategy and how they want to grow with their people, and how do they create a high performing team that's going to get them there. And so our red thread leadership model starts with why. So we agree with Simon Sinek that you need to start with why. And we really help them create that company purpose. And it's looking at, why do they do what they do? How do they deliver it? And then what can others expect for them, both internally and externally? So they would take that purpose to somebody like you and say, okay, how do we communicate this externally? And then we help them with the internal part, right? So which is, how did you then take that purpose and create a plan? What's your vision? What's your strategy? What are your goals? And then from there, let's take a look at your processes. So that's the third P in our process. And it's looking at, now that we know our purpose and where we want to go, let's look at our process and say, do we have the right processes in place to get us there? Are there ways that we could do this more efficiently? Can we empower the team to continuously improve as they're making the journey towards the vision? And then we look at the positions, right? So exactly what you're talking about. Who do we hire? How are we structured? How are decisions made? And how do we promote people? When do we decide how we promote people? And then finally is passion, which is equivalent to what you talked about for devotion, right? So are they passionate about the company's purpose? And are they passionate about their role in it? And it's all underlined with the foundation of trust. So do they trust the company, and do they trust each other? And that's where that passion comes from. So I think looking at, really creating clarity around your purpose, your vision, where you want to go, your business plan, along with that connection to passion and purpose, is really how we can help companies not just grow, but sustain for the long haul.
Oh, yeah. So you start with the why, but you get pretty quick into the how.
Right.
Super important, right? I mean, because the only place I deviate from Simon is, we can all sit around and dream forever the why and never make a dollar or do a thing towards it. Yeah, that how is so much more valuable. I'm reminded of another conversation I have with a team member now that is turned to executive level in our companies, and she had the goods. And I'm like, look, everybody can see A, and a lot of people can see Z. but can you see the B through the Y? Like, I need to know that you can get, like,
Take the
you know,
steps.
these tiny steps. And she never blinked and went, yeah.
And she's
But
delivered.
she's delivered everything we've ever asked of her, you know. But I knew the minute she answered it like that, I'm like, she knows that we don't just blink and get there. Like, we have to do these things. But don't you find that that is so hard? Isn't that hard? Is it harder now than you think it might have been 30 years ago or 20 years ago or even 10?
100%. I feel it myself as a business owner, and I feel it for executives and business owners out there that are also facing it. Think about it. Our whole world changed 3 years ago, and how we work together in the workplace was completely turned upside down. And now we're in this time of rapid change, right? So companies are trying to figure out, do we have hybrid? Do we still work from home? Do they have to come in the office? How do we organize? How do we communicate at the same time that they're running really fast on this speed of change? And then there's tons of uncertainty, like every day in the economy, right? What is happening? Are we headed for a recession? What's next? There's all this uncertainty about the future. And I think you're absolutely right. When I started in my career, we had these things called a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan, right? In business, I don't even think that's possible anymore. I tell my clients, you can set a direction for the next 3 years, but we really don't know where business is going to be in the next 3 years because of how fast things are changing. And none of us have ever experienced the speed of change before.
Right.
No.
So, like, I'm way off script here, but on target, I think, how do you find and build that trust? Do you find that a person like yourself can be an outside voice that helps the group, you know, somebody like a guru, if you will, that's not the head leadership? That's like, you take my organization, just take my real estate organization, for instance. I hired BrandFace years ago. Now I'm lucky enough to be a partner with BrandFace and be bold branding and stuff, because I'm just in the real estate space. I just proved that the principles work constantly. Personal branding works. Personal branding works. If you work personal branding, you will grow companies like crazy. And then we got to that spot where, okay, now we've got to get this leadership to buy in, to understand. And we can't have infighting, and we can't have somebody that's jealous. We all have to be targeted towards that. And I have weaknesses, right? As the leader, as the CEO, I have the vision and I can see it, but I don't deal with the drama very good. I'm like, you like, just get on board, or please just get out of everybody else's way, because I can't, you know. Do you find it like a person like yourself makes that easier? Because now we have this outside person that's saying, hey guys, including me, owner, CEO, chief cook and bottle washer, like the guy with a vision and the guy that keeps cutting these useless checks that don't end up in y'all's pockets because we make all these mistakes. Do you find that that helps that to establish that trust and for other team members that come on board?
Yes, absolutely. So I wouldn't see me or my team as a guru, but more as a partner that helps facilitate the conversation and build capability in the organization to really create that strong culture. So that, the leader of the company, we carry all of this on our shoulders, and we don't have to. When we have a winning dream team, like I like to call it, they actually, once they have that clarity and they're passionate about where your purpose is going, where your vision is going, they're actually going to bring you ideas that you would have never thought of. And they can actually move things faster and make you stronger, but they have to be clear and they have to be connected to what you're trying to create. They have to be just as invested in your success as you are, and vice versa. You need to be just as invested in their success. So like the person that you interviewed, if they don't feel like you care about them, then they're not going to care about you. And, when we went through this great resignation a couple of years ago, there was some research done on why were people leaving companies. And the number one reason that they said they were leaving companies and going to another company is because they were looking for a place that was well led and headed in the right direction. Did they say more money? No. They said well led and headed in the right direction. So people want to be part of something. People want to be included in your purpose, in your vision, but you have to trust them with that. You have to be clear yourself, and then you have to trust them with that. And sometimes that requires, putting those processes in place, getting that culture in a way so that you have leaders that are leading towards that. And of course, we all have areas of blind spots, right? So the metaphor I use is a fish can't see its own water, and that water is your culture. And so sometimes you can't see what's going on in your business and with your team because you're in it. And so sometimes somebody from the outside coming in, doing an assessment, looking at what's going on, can then give you those indications about something really foundational or fundamental that's broken, or maybe it's just a communication issue, or maybe it's more of a clarity issue. But you need that. I mean, even I go to outside people all the time because I know I can't see my own environment.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. We use a similar analogy. You can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And so it helps to have somebody look in from the outside with a totally fresh perspective. So the question I have is, what is the determining factor or difference between just a really great executive and a leader?
Yeah, I think there's not a difference between them. So I think they can be one and the same person, right? You can be an executive and be a great leader. But I think I created the title of the book to say you can't just lean on your title, right? Just because you're an executive or you're the CEO of your business doesn't mean that everyone's going to follow you. Right. So it's really, again, what direction are you taking them? Do they understand where you're taking them? And do they want to follow you? And I use the example of if you've ever heard of somebody climbing Mount Everest and they have a Sherpa that takes them and guides them along the way. And sometimes that Sherpa is in front of them, and sometimes that Sherpa is behind them, and sometimes that Sherpa is to the side and cheering them on and telling them they can do it. If you've ever seen people that have summited Mount Everest, when they get to the top of the mountain, very rarely is the Sherpa in the picture.
Right.
You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They think they did it themselves, right? So it's really looking at leadership in that way. Can you create an environment where they're just as excited about your summit as you are, and then you're just the guide that helps them get there? And then when they do get there, they think they did it themselves. And that's really looking at, that takes so much weight off of you as the executive, right? Like it's
right.
Doesn't have to all be on your shoulders when you have a high performing team that really wants to get there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to encourage listeners to reach out to Sonya. We're going to give her contact information for these things because I can tell you from 30 years of being on my own in business, I would have sped the process up. The true success that I've seen had really only come the last 10 years. So 20 years before that, I'm turning over teams and I'm getting rid of people I don't think are fitting the culture. And I'm trying to get the next guy to be devoted as I'm devoted to them. And I'm going through this thing. And I just look back, people ask you questions all the time. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? I'd be like, you need to hire somebody like Sonya, right? Because you need to help somebody build this culture for you and get that very important discretionary effort out of everybody. Because if it's just like, okay, I'm here 40 hours, I wasn't here 40 hours in a minute, and I wasn't here 39 hours and 59 minutes. I was here 40 hours. I want a 40-hour paycheck. There's very few tasks I find, especially medium to small business, can operate that way. Don't you find that the same? You have to have people bought into the culture.
Yes, absolutely. So you get compliance as opposed to engagement or passion, right? So they're showing up, they're doing just enough so they don't get fired. And then I think what's not fair, especially to younger generations, right, is that then they get marked as saying, well, they don't want to work hard. They don't understand hard work, right? Right. And that's not true. They're just not going to put up with it, right?
Yeah.
They're just saying, okay, if you don't understand where you're going and we want to be part of something. We want to have meaning in our life. They understand that. So if you're not going to give that to them, they're just going to give you the bare minimum. And in some cases, do things like quiet quitting or checking out and, just enough to keep the paycheck going. But you haven't engaged them and shown them what their superpower is and how their superpower is contributing to the company. And ultimately, their purpose can be connected to the company's purpose. And then you have somebody that's in with you for the long haul.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
What was it your grandpa used to say about when you pay a man less than he's worth?
Oh, yeah. If you pay a man less than what he's worth, he'll soon be earning less than what he's paid. Yeah. He used to say that all the time. I think that's a human thing. I think we all, if they're going to do that, I'm going to do this,
Right.
And when
Because they don't feel valued.
Because they don't feel valued or heard or listened to. And I think all of us have felt that at times. And, engagement with the owner, one of the things I try to do, I did get a compliment the other day from a guy, and we were out doing some physical labor, and we had a helper show up just to help one of my employees. And he goes, man, your boss is cool. He's out here working with us, like he was just sort of shocked, And Wesley said, he'll never ask you to do anything he wouldn't do himself. And Wesley had been raised in a culture where he understood that as a principle too. Mm-hmm. And so he valued that. And it's amazing, he gives me 110% every day anyway, but it seems like I get 150 when I show up too.
Yeah.
And he's always telling me, oh, you don't have to be out here. And I'm like, I know, I want to be, and we work good together. But it's refreshing to see that out of younger people, because it is the positive that you're talking about. He feels valued when I'm out there and valued when I'm not.
Yes.
So,
Oh, okay. But you're the sweet today and I'm the sour.
all right.
Okay. So
It's usually the other way
here's
around.
the other side of the coin. So I would absolutely agree with you. We're very value driven young people today that they want to belong, be a part of something, etc. Okay. But what do you do when they really just want to get paid a whole lot of money for showing up? Just showing up. Like, what can you do in that case? Because you don't come up with stereotypes for no reason, right? So there's some validity to that. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And that goes back to why we start with why. We don't just start with why for the company. We start with why for each member of the team. And most people don't know their why, or they have it
I would
wrong,
agree with that.
right? So they might say, oh, my why is my family or my faith, or I want to make a difference in the world. But we actually take them through a process to understand what their true why is, their why before they had a family, before they did the job that they have, I would say that's their purpose, to understand what their purpose is. So we really take them through, each member of the team, through a process to understand that why, so that they can understand themselves and what they bring to the table, right? And then not only do you understand as the leader, you understand what motivates them, but they understand how that they can contribute. And then we marry that to the company purpose and say, okay, this is their why and what motivates them and what they're really good at, their superpower. Are they in the right spot in the company to be able to leverage that? And then once they understand that, then they're ready to go. They see not only their own value, but how they are going to bring value and meaning to what you're trying to create.
Was so well spoken, Sonya,
Yes.
really and truly.
Yes.
Like, because these are not lost concepts on us as business owners and as leaders in our business and executive in our businesses. I read Good to Great years ago. It's a fantastic book, talks about why a longevity of companies and how they're able to do that, and finding purpose in what they do is something that's very big on that. But it's just not enough. It's just not enough, like you said, and I'm also like a Paulo Coelho fan. So I love The Alchemist. I read Alchemist every year, right? And the reason why is it talks about finding your personal destiny, finding why it is that you are here. What is it that truly makes you happy? And I really like your answer right there, because it's not just why are you wanting this job? Why are you going to be good at this job? It's really, truly like, should you be a carpenter or should you be a salesperson? If you had stripped away the family, the responsibilities, the rent, the car payment, what would you be doing right now? And I assume that would be some of the process that you go through to say, look, you're a natural born salesperson. Now you just need the tools to do it and the territory to be let go and do it in.
Yeah, and really, I love what you said about the purpose not being enough. And a lot of our thought leaders and leadership have misunderstood in what they've said because somebody just locks into one piece of it. And that's why I created Red Thread Leadership, because it is really connecting the red thread of the purpose through everything you do, through execution into the culture, right? So that you're taking that and you're bringing it to life, right? It's not just, oh, we came up with this purpose and vision. It's up on our website. It's on a PowerPoint slide. In some cases, it's on the wall, right? And then we said, okay, that's it. Right? Right.
Yeah.
No, it's really saying, no, how do we really bring this to life every single day in what we're doing? Does every single person in the company understand how they're contributing to it? What's their piece of it, so that it's really connecting for them and they really see how they're bringing it to life? And I think that one of the things that we haven't talked about is, in addition to people not wanting to work hard, there's also this element of people who are working too hard right now, right?
Absolutely
I agree
true.
with that.
Yeah. So there's, I think that the American Institute of Stress said that like 94% of people are feeling stressed at work. And I think it's like 65% or something like that, that are ready to quit their job because of stress. Right. And when I look at those numbers, it breaks my heart, because it
Sure.
doesn't have to be that way. Right. And so speed of change and the uncertainty, and people are active and running so fast, like on a treadmill, but they don't really feel like they're going anywhere. They're just busy, right?
Mhm.
And then that starts to lead to burnout and anxiety. And that impacts more than just your company. It impacts our whole society and mental health. And I'm really happy that a lot of companies are having that conversation, but I don't see a lot of companies that are doing something about it. And it really comes back to, when you're clear about your purpose, then you can get rid of all that busy work and get really focused on what's going to move things forward as opposed to just being busy and chaotic, going with reactive to whatever is being thrown at you that day.
Yeah, that's true. And it comes to light. I mean, as we were discussing, the type of person Michael's looking for this new role, it's like we're thinking, okay, do they need to be able to do? What do their achievements need to have been? Like just the requirements and the guidelines for that person. And I don't know that we've said, okay, well, we're looking for the person to fill this space and do these things in the way the company wants it. But I'm not really sure we've had the discussion of, oh, what does that person want out of their life? Where do they see themselves and what do they see themselves as? How do they see their own superpower? I guess, how do they see themselves showing up and filling a role for the company? And sometimes it's not going to be the same role. It's not going to be a fit. But I love that concept of looking at it both ways instead of saying, okay, you're hired, now go get in the assembly line, right?
Right.
Which is what a lot of, most companies actually do. They're looking for somebody to fill a role. They find the right person to fill that role. But is it really that person's agenda to fill that role? And I think that's where we have to ask the deeper questions. And that's how we can at least avoid a major part of, oh my gosh, 4 months in and this person's just not the right one.
Yeah, I
It's
think
hard, though.
it is. Like what you specialize in is so fantastic because it is so necessary. I was the type of, I had to come out of a certain psychology that said, these people, oh, they're liars. All these people won't tell us the truth. Like, I don't understand. I went over all these things in the interview. They said, and I think you nailed something when you said that they a lot of times don't understand themselves, like what their true purpose is or what their true calling is or what, I was fortunate to know what I wanted to do at 18 years old and I'm still doing it. Not everybody has that gift, if you will, to know that. And they have to figure these things out. And then they have these externals that cause problems that they have to work out. And I finally moved to that book, The Influencer. I moved to begin to think of people just that they were in the wrong space. And then I took from good to great. Okay, you got a bus and you want to put the right people in the right seat on the bus, right? And that was a concept that was great, but that wasn't enough because sometimes they think they really do go into it thinking, I am a good painter. And then you hand them a brush and all of a sudden you find out they can't paint nothing. Like if they wanted to be a painter, I don't think they were lying from their heart. I think that they truly had this. And then I was duped and felt duped because I wanted a painter. And then you said you were a painter. And so I think it's mistrust on both sides, don't you?
Creates a disconnect.
And it creates this disconnect between the person in the role and the person that's leading in the role. And we all have to sort of find that baseline of trust and understanding. This is something I want to encourage leaders of business or executive of business that want to be better leaders to do some more research and call and talk to Sonya about these things because I think it will save you decades of mistakes and headaches.
Yes, absolutely. On both sides, right? Not having the right people working for you. That means that they're being prevented from fulfilling their purpose, whatever that is, right? Because they're just in a job they don't really care about.
Yeah, so important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. We have 2 more questions for you, Sonya. So here's one that we ask all of our guests. If our listeners had the freedom to visit anywhere in the world, which place would you recommend they visit and why?
Yes, I know that you asked this on your podcast, and I was really thinking about it because I love to travel, and there's so many places I would recommend.
It's hard.
Yeah, but I think that I'm just going to go to my core and say where I was born, which is Santa Fe, New Mexico, because it's a place unlike any place I've been in the world, and I've been in a lot of different countries and all over the United States. It has its own culture, it has a mix of ethnicities and history. It's the oldest state capital in the world and preserves a lot of its character and charm. So if you love art, if you love history, then I would suggest Santa Fe, New Mexico.
I love that answer.
I do too. We have a client in Santa Fe, and helping her choose imagery for her brand was a great experience because it's like, wow, that's unique. I've never seen a home like that before. This is amazing, right? So it was a really cool experience that I've never been there. So I think it's absolutely beautiful.
It's a gorgeous city,
gorgeous
place. And I agree with you. That's a great one. And we've never had that answer before. So
Great.
That's awesome too.
Yeah.
Now, the other question that we ask people is, if there was one piece of advice, what would you give people about their personal brand?
I would say 2. They're connected. That's why it's 2. It's really starting with why do you do what you do? And not just starting with it, but telling people. in an authentic way. So that's the second piece of it, right? So it's not just understanding why you do what you do and what motivates you, but also making sure that you're expressing that in a very authentic way, because no one else is going to have your story. They might have your why. They might have, that core might come from the same place, but no one's going to have the experience that you have and be able to tell the story that you have. And that's really how you're going to stand out in your personal brand. And it's also how you're going to stand out in your company brand too.
I love it.
Great advice. Great advice.
Fantastic.
So now let's hear a little bit more about your brand. Tell everybody, remind them of your book title so they can pick that up. And also tell everybody the best way to learn about you or contact you.
Yes, absolutely. So my book is You're an Executive, but Are You a Leader? It's available in hardback and Kindle on Amazon. And then best way to reach me is executiveleader.com, which has all kinds of resources, free resources there. We have hundreds of blog articles and things like that you get for free. And then I'd love to just give your listeners, I do a masterclass on Red Thread Leadership. It's only about 30 minutes and it goes through each of the processes and case studies on how companies have implemented it so that you can start to implement it in your business, and they can access that at redthreadleadership.com.
Awesome.
That is awesome. We'll make sure that those links are also in the show notes, and we encourage y'all to reach out to Sonya and learn more. I know I'm going to do it because I don't think we ever stop learning in any capacity. We better not anyway. What's the quote? Show me a man's library, I'll tell you where his mind died. And so we encourage y'all to continue to grow like that and continue to stay strong and growing your businesses.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today, Sonya. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.